Normally we think of survival as the absolute ultimate prize for any living thing. But for a select few species, their biological mandate is, well, it's far more sinister. Today, we're looking at creatures that don't just mate, they execute a highly calculated, one-way mission of genetic persistence, where the ultimate act of intimacy is quite literally a death sentence.
Okay, let's dive into this chilling premise. When you read a quote like this, it completely challenges everything we think we know about evolution, right? We're taught that animals are hardwired to stay alive at all costs. Yet what we're about to explore isn't just some high-risk gamble or a weird behavioral mistake. It's a deliberate, calculated physiological design. For these species, to reproduce is to self-destruct. So, to really understand how this works, we need to quickly ground ourselves in the biology. Scientists call this phenomenon Semelparity, or as it's much more vividly known, Big Bang reproduction. Think of it as the ultimate evolutionary trade-off. An animal dumps absolutely everything into a single explosive burst of reproductive effort, which is then immediately followed by an inevitable and, honestly, horrific total system failure. It's a fascinating, if totally macabre, evolutionary design.
Let's start with Section 1, Nature's Fatal Attraction.
To really grasp just how intense this strategy is, let's look at a harmless-looking, mouse-like marsupial from Australia called the Antechinus. Beneath that cute, furry exterior is a biological, ticking time bomb. When breeding season arrives, and this is triggered by a very precise shift in the length of daylight, something truly terrifying happens. The males enter what can only be described as a state of reproductive psychosis. They stop eating, they stop sleeping, they ignore literally every single survival need they have, focusing 100% on the hunt for a mate. They'll engage in this relentless mating frenzy that can last for up to 14 hours straight. And to feel this unyielding drive, their bodies flood with totally toxic levels of free testosterone and cortisol. And this brilliantly illustrates the horrific biological cascade that follows. That massive cortisol spike, it isn't just everyday stress, it's practically poison. It leads directly to step 2, a total immune collapse. Their fur starts falling out in clumps, their internal organs begin to hemorrhage, and they quickly develop gangrenous sores. It's awful. They are literally mating themselves into a state of living decomposition. By the time the short breeding season ends, the final step is an absolute guarantee. Every single male in the population is dead.
Moving on to Section 2, the exhaustion strategy.
Now, if you think the Antechinus is just some weird outlier, consider the northern quoll. This is the largest known semiparous mammal. It's a carnivorous marsupial where the drive to mate just totally overrides basic survival instincts. Look at this breakdown. While female quolls spend nearly a quarter of their time resting, the males slash their sleep down to a mere 8%. That leaves 92% of their time dedicated to waking, hunting, and relentlessly seeking mates. Researchers have tracked these guys traveling over 10 kilometers in a single night. To put that into perspective, that's the human equivalent of walking nearly 40 kilometers, basically a marathon, every single night just to find another mating opportunity.
And the physical toll of this terminal lust is absolutely devastating. Remember, this isn't a choice for them. It's a biological obsession hardwired in to maximize their reproductive output. By the end of their one and only breeding season, these once sleek predators are completely unrecognizable. They suffer severe weight loss, they stop grooming entirely, and they become riddled with parasite infestations. It's really vital to note here, they don't die of old age. They die from a complete and total exhaustion of their life force.
All right, Section 3, the starving matriarch.
We're going to slow things down a bit now and descend into the crushing, dark depths of the Monterey Canyon, about 1,400 meters below the surface. Down here in the abyss lives Granulodon boropacifica, a species of deep-sea octopus. Now, for most octopuses, Semelparity is pretty standard. The males die shortly after mating, and the females die after their eggs hatch. But this specific mother, she performs an extreme evolutionary balancing act that completely redefines the very concept of parental sacrifice. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the staggering number, 53. Researchers actually observed one of these females brooding her eggs for 53 months. Guys, that is 4.5 years. It is the longest brooding period of any known animal on Earth. And here's the kicker. During those 53 months, she never ate a single meal. Not one. She just stayed in the exact same spot, meticulously cleaning her eggs and shielding them from predators, slowly starving. When you compare the two, you really see the brutal reality of the deep sea's zero-sum game. On one side, you have the mother's horrific physical toll. Her skin becomes pale and loose, her weight completely plummets, and her once sharp eyes begin to dim as her body just slowly withers away.
But on the other side is the biological success of her offspring. Because she holds on for so incredibly long, her hatchlings emerge as miniature adults, fully capable of surviving the abyss on their own. The very moment they hatch, her biological purpose is extinguished. Her death is the only way her children can truly live.
Which brings us to Section 4, the upstream ghosts. Moving up from the static depths of the ocean to the rushing currents of our rivers, we find the iconic Pacific salmon. Born in freshwater and raised in the salt, they journey hundreds of miles against the current for a final, fatal performance. To survive this brutal trek, they undergo some pretty grotesque physical mutations. They stop feeding entirely, and their digestive systems literally wither away just to make more room for eggs and sperm. Their skin turns this vivid, bright red, and the males develop massive humps and these hooked beaks known as kypes. At this stage, they are essentially zombies, fueled only by stored energy and the singular, overwhelming drive to spawn.
And once fertilization finally occurs, the reproductive death is practically instantaneous. But they don't just quietly pass away. Their bodies actually begin to violently decay while they are still actively swimming. It's wild to think about, but this rotting process provides a final, absolutely vital gift to the ecosystem. Their nutrient-rich carcasses nourish the very home streams where their offspring will soon hatch. It completes a perfect circular system of life and death.
I want to pause here for a second and just ask you this directly. If evolution is supposed to be designed to keep us alive, why on earth would it hard-code a species to self-destruct for a single act of passion? It feels like a massive paradox, doesn't it? I'd love to hear your thoughts on this scientific mystery, so please, drop your theories down in the comments. I'll be reading through to see who has the most scientifically sound ideas.
All right, Section 5, the Cannibalistic Contract. Let's move to and see how this builds in the insect world, where things get even more brutal, and the male's often, well, just a nutritional supplement. On the left, we've got the male Australian redback spider. This guy actually performs a suicidal somersault after mating, willingly placing his body directly over the female's jaws. By letting her consume him, he ensures she gets the protein required to produce healthy egg sacs. Then on the right, the male praying mantis faces a literal decapitation contract, where his one shot at reproduction usually ends with his head being removed during or after the act. Make no mistake, these aren't biological tragedies, they are strictly nutritional transactions. When we summarize the strategies we've covered, the sheer variety of this design is just staggering. You have the Antechinus disintegrating from toxic stress and total immune collapse. You've got the Pacific salmon rotting alive to fertilize its home stream. And you have the praying mantis losing its head to physically nourish the female. Nature has engineered highly specific, absolutely horrific methods of death for these creatures. It proves that these are perfectly coded features, not biological errors.
So the crucial point is this. In the Big Bang reproductive strategy, the individual is completely irrelevant. The parent's survival means absolutely nothing once the reproductive act is finished. The only thing that truly matters is the genetic code. Nature will gladly and violently sacrifice the vessel to ensure that the code survives and thrives in the next generation. Which brings us to a really powerful quote from our source material that perfectly encapsulates everything we've looked at today. The hunger for genetic legacy is the only force more powerful than the instinct to survive. These creatures fight for that unfulfilled hunger until their very last breath, proving that in the wild, love is quite literally to die for. Which leaves us with one final, provocative thought to take away today. If love in the wild is quite literally a death sentence, what other apparent glitches in the natural world are actually perfect designs hiding in plain sight? If you want to know the answer to that, make sure you're subscribed, because in next week's Explainer, we are going to dive even deeper into the biological errors that actually drive our planet. Thanks for learning with me today, and I'll see you in the next one.